Danny, are you looking forward to listening to our next speaker who's written, the titles of books include, one is called Marketing for Twitter for Dummies, and he's a real expert on digital marketing, and he's going to come today and share some of the most recent insights he has. And he says, I'm obsessed with how technology influences and ultimately changes human behavior. I can't wait to hear more from Lacy from Lacy. Welcome on stage. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Did you have real-time translation for that?
Yes. Can we give another round of applause for Tobias, please? Because I know that if I can only understand 25% of the presentation, and I loved it, I know that you guys probably loved it even more. So thank you for that.
So the expectations are
this
high for you now, Kyle.
Thank you for that.
You set it.
Is this the clicker?
This is the clicker. Stage is yours.
It's good to be back in Sweden, and before I get started, I want to tell you why. My past life was spent at ExactTarget. Is anybody familiar with ExactTarget here? Email service provider. And then at Salesforce. And I basically spoke at a lot of conferences. And most of the time, it was spent in America or Germany. And if you've ever been to a conference in America, or if you've ever met an American, we're pretty crazy in general. And not Trump crazy, we're just weird. And if you go to a conference in America, it's like a sporting event. People are there like, yeah, we're going to talk about marketing for 77 hours. And then the CEO comes in from Salesforce, Mark Benioff, and it's like the second coming of Christ, and everybody's on their knees and just freaking out. And then you go to Germany, and it's the exact opposite. It's very reserved, they're clapping, no offense to anybody in here from Germany, but they're still that excited, they're just not showing it. And the reason why I love Sweden is because you guys are always on time. I think my presentation time was 3:13, and I got up here at 3:13. You're nice, you're polite. I was walking here this morning, and a young woman in a car, I was about a meter away from the road. She stopped 3 meters away from the crosswalk and waited, and I felt like I had to sprint to get across the road because she was so polite. That's why I love this country, so thank you for that. So throughout my time, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of why I've put all this information into this deck. At ExactTarget and Salesforce, I led the research team, and we spent hours upon hours and a ton of money trying to understand consumer behavior. We did surveys in 15 countries. If you guys look for the State of Marketing report that Salesforce releases every year, my team started that. And through that process, we started to learn more about how consumers behave and why they wanted email and why they wanted social. And then I went to OpenView, which is a venture capital firm, and we looked at thousands of businesses. That's all we did, trying to understand why they were growing and if we wanted to give them money. And throughout that time, I realized that the most important thing in the world is trying to manage change, and manage change effectively as professionals. Lessonly is basically a software that helps manage change within organizations. It's a training management software where you put all your knowledge into one place for your employees to learn. But the one thing I realize is that we have to understand change in order for it to actually change what we do, right? And I've never actually figured out the best way to say this, so I rely on Louis C.K. to do it for me. Is anybody familiar with Louis C.K.? Comedian? Okay, so it's about a 3-minute video, so bear with me here.
Because when I read things like the foundations of capitalism are shattering, I'm like, maybe we need that. Maybe we need some time where we're walking around with a donkey with pots clang on the sides.
You think that would just bring us back to reality?
Yeah, because everything is amazing right now, and nobody's happy. Like, in my lifetime, the changes in the world have been incredible. When I was a kid, we had a rotary phone. We had a phone that you had to stand next to, and you had to dial it.
Yes.
Do you realize how primitive? You're making sparks in a phone, and you actually would hate people with zeros in their numbers because it was more like, oh, this guy's got 2 zeros. Screw that guy. Why do I want to? And then if they called and you weren't home, the phone would just ring lonely by itself. And then if you wanted money, you had to go in the bank for when it was open for like 3 hours. You had to stay in line, write yourself a check like an idiot. And then when you ran out of money, you just go, well, I can't do any more things now.
Right.
I can't do any more things.
That's it, yeah.
That was it. And even if you had a credit card, the guy would go, ugh, and he'd bring out this whole chunk, and he'd write, you'd have to call the president to see if you have any money. And
it's all true, kids. You had to call the president, It was ridiculous.
Yes.
Do you feel that we now, in the 21st century, we take technology for granted?
Well, yeah, because now we live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots that don't care, because this is what people are like now. They got their phone, and they're like, ugh. It won't. Give it a second. It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is the speed of light too slow for you? I was on an airplane, and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane, and they go, open up your laptop. You can go on the internet, and it's fast. And I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane. And then it breaks down, and they apologize. The internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, "This is bull." Like how quickly the world owes him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago.
Does anybody feel like that? Anybody feel like that? How quickly the world owed him something he knew existed only 10 seconds ago. That's pretty much consumerism at its finest. So why is this happening? I think that we're entering, and there's many people who say this, we're entering into a fourth revolution. We had the Industrial Revolution, the Information Revolution, the Consumer Revolution, and as you can tell, the time frames are getting smaller. And I think moving into, we're not quite there yet, but moving into 2020, it's going to be the Intelligence Revolution. And this could be from a creative standpoint, this could be from machine learning. It's just moving into that place where data is driving a lot of decisions, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But it's really led off of the idea called micro moments, which Google pretty much came up with. They have a website, Micro Moments, that you can go read about it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Everybody has a mobile phone in here, I'm guessing? Great. Who uses it for their alarm clock? Like wake up in the morning. Okay, does anybody get pissed off when somebody's ringtone is the same as your alarm tone? Have you ever had that happen? Where you're like, oh God, I heard that this morning. That should give you a good idea about the prevalence of mobility, right? I don't need to show you a chart that says mobile's growing. We all know that, right? Because we are the Google generation. Google has trained us to need content when we want it, in the moment of need, when we need it, all the time. And I'm not saying millennials, which I'm a part of, is the Google generation. We are all the Google generation. I actually get pretty upset when people talk about demographics when it comes to technology and consumerism, because everybody uses things similarly. And the reason why we care is because there's 100 billion monthly searches on Google, right? So as we search for content in these micro moments, Amazon actually patented that micro moment. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Raise a hand. What they patented in 1999? It rules my life. Got one person. Buy now with one click, okay? That micro moment. We were talking about a book that Mike Storm's co-founder wrote, and I bought it within one click while I was talking to him. And then you have Domino's Pizza in America where I don't even have to click. I just open the Domino's app, it counts down for 10 seconds, and then orders my favorite pizza. It's about as millennial as you can get. I didn't have to move my thumb to get something really unhealthy. I probably don't even have to get up. I bet they'll bring the pizza in for me, and I can eat it on the couch. But this is changing the way that we are talking to brands, the way we're dealing with brands. I think Google pretty much calls it an intent-rich moment when a person turns to a device to act on a need to know, go, do, or buy. I don't think it's just a device. I think it's everything. When we're interacting with brands, the micro moments or the moments in time are what matter. Google lays it out. I want to know moments, I want to go moments, I want to do moments, and I want to buy moments. And as natural language processing becomes more prevalent, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, it becomes more important that we have this information, and as a brand, that it's categorized and managed effectively. I still can't get Siri to work, but there's going to be a time where she can. I'm even calling it a she as an example. But all of these micro moments, what's important is first trend, which is data at scale. We talk a lot about data, big data, small data, whatever. It's about managing data effectively at scale. My favorite quote is from a guy named David Walmsley. At the time, he was head of multi-channel for Marks & Spencer. We must move from numbers keeping score to numbers that drive better actions. It's not about keeping score constantly. It's about managing data effectively so that you can make a decision about the future. And I wish Ian was still here because I have an entire slide about personalization. Apparently, Americans industrialize a lot of things. Personalization is one of them. But data is extremely important. So I'm going to give you a test real fast. And this is not a representation of America, but bear with me here. Or it might be. Okay? Anybody watch Hoarders? You guys have Hoarders here, the show? Do you have Hoarders here? I can't imagine you guys have Hoarders in Sweden. Yeah, it's good. How do you feel? How do you feel looking at this? Is anybody like gonna have a panic attack? Because I apologize if you are. How do you feel after looking at this? Right? I use these examples for data management because most of the time, from a data management perspective, we look like this as a brand. And we look like this in every room of our house for different business units within an organization. And that is extremely important to understand because most technology implementations in general fail because of bad data. That's it. The hardest thing in the world to do when moving tech is trying to figure out how to move the historical data within the system, or trying to figure out how to create one source of truth. One place where all of your consumer data lives, all of your transactional data lives, is your point of sale system and your e-commerce system speaking with your customer relationship management system, right? And it's not the fact that we don't have choices. This is the marketing technology landscape as of this year. These are all logos of companies. It's not a technology problem, it's a data problem. I know somebody said this earlier. You have all the tech you could possibly need to do this right. It's just a matter of how the data is set up. I want to show you my tech stack. It's a little bit different because I'm in B2B. And you can change this around as you see fit, but this is how I manage our customers' relationships. You know, what would be particular to you guys? I use is anybody familiar with Autopilot? Marketing automation software. I use it in place of Pardot or Marketo or any of the other ones. Social advertising quantifies a new startup that is actually artificial intelligence for social advertising. So it manages all of your spend and everything using machine learning. And then my favorite one is Segment. Is anybody familiar with Segment? Anybody use Segment? Okay, so segment.com is basically, for a lack of better terminology, a data lake where you can plug in everything into one spot and it manages all your data, all your events, everything possible in one place. So while you're plugging in different technology, whether that's Shopify or Magento or anything, it's really, really, really easy to do. And it's a brilliant model because when data management is easy to do and we start getting into machine learning looks like this, not this. The only reason machine learning can work is if your data is managed effectively. And I'm not saying that Terminator is going to come back and blow us all to hell. I mean, it might, right? We'll deal with that when the day comes. But it's really important. And marketing leaders in general, this is 7,000 marketing leaders across the world, about 73% of them are going to invest in artificial intelligence next year, if they're not already doing it. So I like artificial intelligence. I actually call it assisted intelligence because I don't think it's quite artificial. When it comes to the point when it's true intelligence, it's not going to be artificial either, which is scary. But assisted intelligence is like Amy Ingram. Anybody familiar with X.AI? Amy Ingram. Does anybody get emails from Amy Ingram? Look at this. This is a artificial intelligence for scheduling meetings. So if I need to schedule a meeting with a counterpart, I can just add amy@x.ai to my email, and Amy will book the meeting for me. People actually don't know that Amy's a robot. People send flowers to the office for Amy. Amy's actually been asked out on dates. She has a brother called Andrew Ingram, in case you want to like switch it up for every other person. But they are automating meeting, because how much time do you spend booking meetings? A lot. You waste a lot of time doing it, and they're trying to solve that. And people love them. And they're saying she, not it. Someone asked me if Amy sits upstairs. Happier that Amy seems real or someone thinks I'm important enough to have my own assistant. But this is assisted intelligence. Alexa, Google Home is also assisted intelligence. This is from the New York Times, back when Alexa first came out. If Alexa were a human assistant, you'd fire her, if not have her committed to an insane asylum. I have a funny story real fast. My wife and I were talking. We had just got Alexa in our kitchen. We were talking about why we loved black beans in this salsa we were making. And a couple days later, a box showed up on our front porch of 50 cans of black beans. 50. That's a lot of black beans. You guys don't know that. Apparently, Alexa somehow was activated while I was talking to my wife and assumed that I was trying to order 50 cans of black beans and ordered them. That's weird, right? That's not cool. And it was probably delivered by drone, all that crap. You can imagine in America with all of our guns, everybody trying to shoot down the boxes of black beans in the air. But this is just assisted intelligence. So what do we need to do to get to machine learning? I'm only going to talk about one of these: deep learning, natural language processing, and quantum computing. Deep learning is a subfield with algorithms inspired by the structure and function of the brain called artificial neural networks. Getting to the point where a system is working the same way as our brain. There are a couple companies that I wanted to list. You guys can take a picture of this if you want. If you want this deck afterwards, please, I'll share my contact information, but I'm assuming they might send it out. SiteZeus, Infinite Analytics, Layer 6, Optoro, and Pinterest are all software companies or even internet companies that are building deep learning algorithms within their database. Deep learning means more data plus more intelligence equals highly personalized experiences if you do it the right way. If data managed correctly and is managed to the point where you are driving personal interactions with customers, because most people want that. I'm not sure why it's only 52% are likely to switch if you don't personalize content. I don't know what the other half want, but most people will not come back if you don't do that. So final thoughts, then I'm done. How do we adapt as marketers, as professionals? Align your team to the entire customer journey, not only the acquisition of the customer. I think marketing is in the front lines. You need to own it. Focus on one source of truth for data management. It's going to be hard, but you need to get there. Test a new idea every 2 weeks. If anybody's familiar with agile methodology, you all should be implementing it as marketers or as retailers. And then the last two, continually train team for continuous and rapid improvement, and create an experienced team, not a marketing team. The creation and management of the customer experience is the only thing that makes you relevant. That's it. You're not marketers, you're not social media marketers, you're not retailers, you are experience makers and managers. That's it. It's the only thing that matters. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you.
Can we stick to the last idea of creating an experience team and talk briefly about what the necessary competencies or capabilities of such a team would be? And then secondly, relating back to Ian this morning, what would some successful or some valuable KPIs be for such a team, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's more about team alignment than it is creating an actual experience team. I think your customer support, customer service teams, and marketing teams need to be as aligned as much as possible. A great score to track is, I mean, this is more B2B. It's actually consumer as well, but NPS scores, where people are giving you survey responses on your
Net Promoter Score.
Yeah, Net Promoter Score. That's what we use, and that's what I've seen some retailers use for a metric.
What is your view on sort of the responsibility for data? We see roles as such as chief data officer or people being in charge of, I guess, managing the data, or what are they actually doing at work? I don't know.
The responsibility is security. I think you saw with Equifax that they were not managing that effectively. That's it. You spending a ton of time and energy on finding one source and make sure that security, you understand the security implications that you have to build out. I think that's the most important thing. Because consumer trust is, as we heard earlier, extremely important.
You work as an advisor as well. What would be like a dream client for you?
A dream client?
Or more a dream assignment?
Working in the innovation lab at Nike.
Why?
They are creating things that we don't even know exist yet. And I think that any company that is leading a market, like Nike in multiple facets, you could learn a lot in that role.
What specifically is it are you curious about?
Well, I know that in the innovation lab, they have rocket scientists, I think 15 rocket scientists, and all they do is design new shoes. Which is also probably why we haven't been to Mars or Venus yet.
Because all those, they're busy designing polyester objects at Nike in Oregon. Anything else you'd like to give us before you take off?
No, you guys have the hardest job in the world. Consumer brands, you need to spend a lot of time and energy trying to figure out the experience. So if you do that, it usually works out. So good luck.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.